So hey everyone, welcome to today's class. So we are going to study today about Amazon SQS. So SQS standing for Simple Queue Service. So this also comes under one of the application services of Amazon Web Services. And we already spoke about one other application service called as Simple Email Service. So this also comes under that same category. But then Simple Queue Service or SQS was one of the first Amazon Web Services service that they released, and it's a highly scalable queue service and it's highly durable. So let's see what are all the different features that it offers us. So Amazon Simple Queue Service, it's a fully managed message queuing service that enables you to decouple and scale microservices, distributed systems, and serverless applications. So let's break that down and let's understand it a little bit more in detail. So it allows you to decouple in the sense, let's say for example that you have service one that is producing messages onto the queue, and then you have service 2 that is consuming messages from the queue. So at that point of time, what happens if service 1 is down or if service 2 is down? You still do have all of your messages in the queue, right? And you can say that these messages can be in the queue for a certain period of time and all that, which are some of the properties that we'll study later, which is called as the retention period and so on. But then even if the service 1 or the service 2 goes down, you will still have all of your messages in the queue. In that way, you have now decoupled both of these services, right? Because now service 1 or service 2 do not depend upon each other. And there is another service on AWS which we studied in along with S3 with event notifications, which was called as simple notification service, right? So again, when it comes from the exam perspective, you have to remember that both these services, simple queue service and simple notification service, both allow you to decouple your existing infrastructure, whether it be a monolith application or whether it be a microservice based application or any distributed system and so on, right? So what you do is, let's say whenever you are writing a REST based web application, right? And your backend service is emitting a JSON file. And this JSON data can be written to a queue. And then your other service can consume from the queue and in order to process these messages. Even in a banking system, in order to decouple your entire architecture that you have drawn up, you can use simple queue service to store each and every transaction data that happens between two entities, or let's say between a producer and a consumer, right? So SQS again eliminates the complexity and overhead in associating with the operating system or even the hardware that you're going to provision for SQS in order to work. So they are entirely taken care of by AWS. And using SQS, you can send, store, and receive your messages between different software components and at any volume, at any scale, right? Without losing messages or requiring other services to be available. That's the statement that describes the scenario wherein if service 1 or service 2 goes down, you will still be able to have all of your messages in the queue and so on, right? So it's a pretty nice architecture that would allow you to decouple your entire infrastructure or even your microservice based applications that you write, and wherein you can store all of your messages onto the queue, and then you can write your consumers in order to consume those messages, right? So all of these are from a developer's perspective, wherein you can write programming using any programming language, right? You're using Java or Python or any other programming language which is supported by the AWS SDK, and you can interact with SQS, right? So how is the message lifecycle? How does this work in SQS? So let's say that we have a component one, and this component one sends message A to the queue, right? And now this message A is distributed across a lot of servers that is being managed by SQS in the background, right? And then now component two retrieves the message from SQS and specifically from a queue that you have created. And once the component 2 starts receiving that message, a visibility timeout on that queue starts running. And this visibility timeout defines that no other consumer during that point of time, right, until the visibility timeout is done, at that point of time will not be able to consume that message again, right? So let's say component 2 retrieves the message and your visibility timeout is set to 40 seconds, right? Then what happens, right? Within 40 seconds, no other consumer will be able to consume that message. So now once component 2 has consumed that message, it is always norms that you got to go ahead and delete that message from the queue during the visibility timeout period, because once the visibility timeout period is done, again message A can be consumed by another consumer also. That's very much possible. So this is how your message lifecycle happens. So component 1 sends a message to the queue, and then component 2 starts receiving the message when the visibility timeout clock starts. Like you have to specify as to how much visibility timeout you would like to have depending on the application that you want to. And then component 2, once it has processed that message, goes ahead and deletes that message from the queue. And if suppose it does it before the visibility timeout is done, then it's perfectly fine. But if it processes the message and does not delete the message after the visibility timeout is completed, then what happens is another consumer will be still able to go ahead and consume that message, because once the visibility timeout is done, another consumer can go ahead and consume the same message. There has to be some kind of explicit delete when it comes to SQS queues, right? And Amazon SQS actually automatically deletes all of these messages that have been in the queue more than a maximum message retention period. So the default is 4 days, but you can specify the message retention period from 60 seconds to 14 days. So there are two types of queues that are supported by SQS. You have SQS standard queue, right, which offers maximum throughput, best effort ordering. It does not give you actual ordering. It just gives you best effort ordering and at least once delivery, because there is high chance that your message can be consumed more than once. So that's why standard queue provides that at least once delivery. With SQS FIFO queue, which is called as first in first out queue, you are given that guarantee of messages that are processed exactly once and even in the exact order that they are sent, right? So these are the two types of queues. It's pretty easy to remember, right? So now let's look at a little bit more into the visibility timeout as to how this works. So you can see over here in this diagram, so a message is received onto the SQS queue, and then the message is returned to the first component, right? The component who is the first consumer. And then immediately the visibility timeout starts. And when the visibility timeout starts, if there is any other request that says, I want to receive this message, or any other consumer tries to receive the message within the visibility timeout, the message will not be returned. But once the visibility timeout is over, then a receive message request is sent to that queue. Automatically the message will be returned. So this is how visibility timeout works. So when a consumer receives and processes a message from the queue, the message remains in the queue because he hasn't explicitly deleted the message, and even SQS won't automatically delete that message. So because SQS is a distributed system, there is no guarantee that the consumer actually received that message, right? Because there could be a problem with any connectivity issue or any problem on the consumer application and so on. Thus, the consumer must actually delete the message from the queue after receiving it and processing it, right? Because SQS is a distributed system, again, it does not have any clue as to whether the consumer is down or not. So the message will still remain in the queue. So until the consumer goes ahead and deletes the message, right? So yeah, you may get a question based on visibility timeout. So just remember this when you're studying for your exam. Yeah. So there is also another type of queue called as a dead letter queue. So SQS also supports dead letter queues, which other queues can target for messages which aren't processed successfully, right? So dead letter queues are useful for debugging your applications or any messaging system, because they let you isolate some of the problematic messages or any kind of error messages that determine why their processing didn't succeed. So for example, if suppose the source queue has a policy with max receive count set to 5, and then the consumer of the queue receives the message for the 6th time and without even deleting it, SQS automatically moves this message to a dead letter queue. So this is mainly a concept behind Lambda function and asynchronous invocations, wherein if suppose there are any problems in terms of the invocation and it's not consumed properly by the consumer and so on, or even if the 3 consecutive invocations have failed and so on, that respective message can be configured to be sent to a dead letter queue, which can be looked at a little bit later in order to find out as to what could be the problem, right? So now there are two types of polling when it comes to SQS. One is called as the long polling and the other one is called as short polling. So best practice over here when it comes to saving cost is to go for the SQS long polling. And if you want to, you can also configure short polling on SQS. So we'll just see the difference between these two. So now let's say that we have multiple components who are here who are consuming messages from the queue, and they have been configured with short polling. So when they are configured with short polling, you can see there are messages of A, B, C, D, and E. But then when you configure short polling, wherein your wait time seconds is parameter is set to 0, what actually happens is only some servers are being queried for messages, not all the servers. So that's why it's mentioned over here that when you consume messages from a queue using short polling, it samples only a subset of its servers. It only sends a request to a subset of its servers and then returns the messages only from those servers. But the subsequent request will send back the response with message E. But then the first request only sends back A, C, D, and B because only a subset of the servers were queried, right? And but if you want to go for long polling, So you get some of the best practices over here. So you get some of these advantages. So one, you can eliminate empty responses by allowing SQS to wait until the message is available in a queue before sending a response. Unless the connection times out, the response to the receive message request contains at least one of the available messages up to the maximum number of messages that you have specified. You can eliminate false empty responses by querying all of the servers rather than subset of the servers when it comes to short polling. And again, this therein you're reducing your cost. And then you can return messages as soon as they become available, right? So these are some of the advantages that long polling provides you compared with short polling. Because with short polling, each and every time you keep polling within a short window of period, you may get a lot of empty responses, right? And you're mitigating that by going ahead and configuring SQS with long polling, right? And in order to save a lot of cost, right? So now let's just go back to the console and let's look at some of these concepts in a practical manner. And also we will do one more extra configuration today, wherein we are going to upload a file to S3, and automatically through event configurations, that file is going to be sent to an SQS queue, right? But before that, let's go ahead and create a queue and let us walk through all of the properties. So this is how you land up in the console. You log into the console, you choose SQS from the services dropdown by just typing SQS over here. So once you land up in SQS, let's go ahead and get started. So it's going to ask us for what type of queue do we need, whether we need a standard queue or a FIFO queue. So I'm going to go with the standard queue. I'm just calling it as my standard queue. And you can see over here, you get unlimited throughput, right? And you get at least once delivery, but occasionally more than one copy could also be delivered. But if you want proper ordering and even exactly once delivery, you'll have to go with FIFO queue. And you get best effort ordering over here. But when it comes to FIFO queue, you can see over here, it supports up to only 300 messages per second. And at the same time, when you do batch requests, it supports up to 3000 messages. And if you want to request a limit increase, you have to support you have to file a support request with AWS. And you get that first in, first out delivery. And you get that exactly once processed message, right? So at the same time, we are not going to directly create this queue as a standard queue. We are just going to configure this queue and walk through the other settings. The default visibility timeout is by default 30 seconds, but we can change this based on what we have studied, right? Depending on our application. The message retention period by default, we mentioned it as 4 days, but we can go up to 14 days. The maximum message size is only 256 KB. You have to understand that when it comes to SQS. And you can also configure a delivery delay. And you can also configure your receive message wait time in terms of seconds. And then over here, you can configure your dead letter queues. You can go ahead and configure a redrive policy wherein you can specify the maximum receives. So if a consumer goes ahead and receives your message more than 6 times or 7 times and so on, then when this threshold is reached, as this maximum received is reached, it will automatically send that message to a dead letter queue that you configure, right? So it should be a existing queue that you already have. And on the server side encryption settings, you can go ahead and encrypt all of your messages in the queue. You can either use server side encryption, and then you can go ahead with a customer master key that AWS creates for you, or one that you already have, right? Which you can specify. We are not going to configure server side encryption right now, and nor even the redrive policy. You're just going to go ahead and create the queue. So now once we have created this queue as a standard queue, you do have some other configurations over here. You do have your queue actions on top. So you can go ahead and configure the queue and again view all of the same settings that we saw at the start. You can go ahead and send a message to this queue. Let's do that. Let's send hi, and then let's go ahead and send this message, right? So now you can go ahead and see once you click on view or delete messages over here, you can start pulling for your messages. You can see that one message called hi is there. And right now it's, configured for long polling. But if you want short polling, you have to set this as 0 and you're going to go with stop polling. Let's see, short polling, sorry. And this is your how many messages that you want to receive. So now if you click start polling for messages, yes, this is short polling. But when you go for more number of seconds, it's called as long polling, right? So now let's just go ahead and delete this message. So let's click on this message. So remember, it's a distributed system. The consumer has to go ahead and delete the message. So now let's go ahead and delete this message, right? Cool. So the other things that you can do over here is you can add a permission. You can purge your queue wherein all of your messages in the queue are going to be deleted. And at the same time, you can delete your queue. And you can subscribe your queue to an SNS topic. So where would this be useful? So just think about it. So now you have SNS configured. And for SNS as a subscriber, you do have SQS. So now if suppose you're sending your message to SNS, automatically that message will also be sent to SQS. So it's like a fan out policy that SNS works on. So for SNS, if suppose for your topic, you have 5 subscribers, all of those 5 subscribers are going to receive that same message, right? So if suppose that message is going to be sent to from S3, right? It's a CloudTrail event that's happening. And from your S3 bucket, a person has deleted an object. And that entire CloudTrail message is going to be sent to SNS. And when you send it to SNS, if suppose you have a subscriber as SQS, now even SQS is going to get that message. So then you can do some other processing when it comes to SQS. You can ask a consumer to get that message and then do some processing based on that. It's possible. So in that way, you can configure SQS to be a subscriber for SNS, right? And you can also configure to trigger Lambda functions, which is excellent, right? So if you want to do more additional processing, like look at your messages, look at whether some of these messages have some kind of explicit access key ID or secret access key specified over there. So, or probably any delete actions that have been done. So it can multitude of different scenarios that you can think of when it comes to configuring a Lambda function to be triggered from an SQS queue, right? So other than these configurations, you do have permissions on the bottom. So this is something that we are going to look at. So like how we had S3 bucket policy, which is a resource-based policy, how we had SNS topic policy, which is a resource-based policy. Similar to that, we have an SQS queue policy, which is also a resource-based policy. So we are going to go ahead and do one such scenario today, wherein we are going to update a file to S3, and then automatically we are going to get that notification onto an SQS queue, and we are going to send it to an SQS queue, and we are going to look at the message over here, right? Cool. So then you have this redrive policy that we configured. So right now we don't have one, but we can set it when we click on queue actions and configure the queue. We do have monitoring for this queue given by CloudWatch. So number of message sent, number of message received, number of empty received. See, we have one over here because we configured short polling. Number of messages deleted, we do have one, right? So you can see all of these metrics given through CloudWatch for you. You do have tags, you do have encryption, and then finally you do have Lambda function triggers from here. So first, let's go ahead and do this lab wherein we go ahead and create an S3 bucket. So let's go to S3 first. Let's see if we can reuse an existing bucket or we can create a new one. So we do have one bucket over here. So we do have a screenshot file over here. So this is really nice. But now let's go ahead and configure our SQS queue to have a queue policy, right? Cool. So now you can see over here, I'm in AWS documentation for SQS queue policy. So I will link this to the resources of this section, or it's pretty easy to find it out. So all you have to do is search on Google with these keywords. So you got to search on Google with these keywords: AWS S3 event notification SQS queue policy, right? And then you will land up on this documentation in the first link itself. So you can see this is the first documentation that I opened over here. So in this documentation, when you scroll down to the last section, you do have the SQS queue policy over here. Let me just copy this and let me go to SQS and let me go to permissions and let me edit the policy document using the advanced, wherein I can specify my own policy over here. So in this policy, if you can see over here, let me just zoom in. So we do have to go ahead and configure our SQS queue ARN to be put over here. And then we have to also go ahead and configure our S3 bucket ARN over here. So let me go to S3 and let me go to permissions and let me go to bucket policy and grab the bucket ARN from here. So let me put this bucket ARN over here. And this is our topic our queue ARN. So how do we get our queue ARN? So let's open up SQS in a new tab. So we can click on our queue and you can see over here, we have our queue ARN. So let's copy the queue ARN, go to this tab where we do have our SQS queue policy, and let's paste this queue ARN over here. So once we have our queue ARN over there, let me just zoom out right now. Let me go ahead and click on review policy and create it. But before that, let me just explain this policy. So it means that whenever there is an action, right? Whenever there is an action or any condition that any kind of action that happens on this particular bucket, send a message to this queue, right? So this is pretty similar to what we did with SNS topic policy, right? So let's go ahead and click on review policy. Let's go ahead and click on save changes. So once we have done this, we can go to S3, and remember that the S3 bucket and the topic should be in the same region. So let's just confirm that once. S3 bucket is in Northern Virginia region, and even our SQS queue is in the Northern Virginia region. That is nice. So now we are going to go into the bucket, go to properties. And this time we are going to scroll down onto events, and we are going to add a notification over here. So I'm calling this as S3 object SQS delete event, right? And I'm going to choose all of the delete events. And instead of giving a prefix or a suffix, I'm just going to send this to an SQS queue. And I'm going to choose my queue over here, my standard queue, and then click on save. So now my events have been activated. It's one active notification. So let me just go ahead and upload a file over here, which is a create object event where nothing is going to happen. But when I delete that object, let me just add this file over here. So now this file has been added. But right now, if I go to my SQS queue and I refresh, you can see there is one message over here, and that message would have been to test the configuration between S3 and SQS. So instead of going ahead and looking at that message right now, let us delete this object and let's go ahead and look at whether we got one more message over there, right? Cool. Now let's just go back to SQS and see. We do have one more message. Brilliant. So now let's look at these messages. So let's go ahead and view and delete these messages. I'm going to go for short polling. Let's start polling for these messages. So we do have one message over here. So, but where has our other message gone, right? So this is one message that we can see over here. And let me just click on more details. You can see that this was the event that was used to set up. And this short polling works only with one message, right? The reason is because it queries only a subset of SQS servers. But let's go for long polling. Let's go for 20 seconds. Let's go start polling again. Now you do see the other message over here. Now this is how long polling works. So now you can see, let's look at this particular event. Right? So now you can see all of the different details that had happened. And even you can see our key, which is our object that we deleted. And you can also see that it will be a object remove delete action over here. Awesome. So now I can just go ahead and click on both of these, and let's go ahead and delete these messages. Right? Cool. So let me also show you one more thing over here. So let us go ahead and go to SNS and also add this as a subscriber, right? So let's go to SNS. So simple notification service. Let's also try that. So simple notification service. Do we already have a topic in this account? Let's check on that. Let's also check whether it's in the Northern Virginia region. Yes, we do have a topic over here. We have a DynamoDB topic over here, but let's create a new topic. So I'm going to call this topic I'm going to call it as my S3 event, and I'm going to give the same as the display name also. And I'm going to go ahead and click on create topic. And now you can see over here under subscriptions, I will also be able to add the SQS queue as a subscription. So you can see over here, Amazon SQS is one of the subscribers. We have already worked with email. So you can click on Amazon SQS and you can give your QARN over here, right? So let's go ahead and copy the QARN once more. Let's copy the QARN. Let's go to SNS. Let's paste the QARN. Right? Awesome. Let's go ahead and go create the subscription. Yes. So you can see over here, we have one subscription that has been in the confirmed status, right? So if you had your email as your subscription, right, then what would have happened is you had to go to your email and then confirm to the subscription. But since it's in the same region, it's another AWS service that we are subscribing, it has automatically come to the confirmed status. So now what happens if suppose I configure an S3 event notification that probably sends out a message to SQS or to SNS, will this subscriber also receive that message, right? So let's take a look at it. Let's try it out. Even if it doesn't work, it's fine, but let's just take a look at it. So let's go to S3 events, but this time I'm also going to get a topic policy, right? Because I'm going to work with SNS over here. I'm going to get a topic policy. I'm going to go to S3 to properties, and I'm going to remove this event, the one that I configured right now with SQS, right? I'm going to delete this, click on save. Now we are going to go to the SNS topic policy, right? Which is my S3 event. Let's go to the access policy and let's click on edit and then look at the access policy. Let's go ahead and remove whatever content is over here and let's paste our SNS topic policy. And now we will need the S3 bucket ARN again. So let's copy the S3 buckets ARN from here, right? From our bucket policy over here. And let's paste the S3 bucket ARN over here, right? Same time, we don't need this last line. And we have to copy our SNS ARN, right? So let's also do that. So let's open up SNS in a new tab. So we will need our topic ARN. So this is something that you guys have already done with the S3 lab, right? So let's copy the topic ARN. Let's go back to SNS in this tab and let's paste our topic ARN. So once you have copied this and pasted this and there is no JSON error, go ahead and save it. So now we can go ahead and configure S3 bucket to send out its event notification to go to an SNS topic, right? So this time we are going to go for S3. Let's call it as S3 SNS to just keep things simple. And I'm going to go with object deleted events and also object created events. This time I'm going to, instead of choosing SQS, I'm going to choose SNS. And I'm going to choose my S3 event over here and click on save. So probably I'll just have to refresh this page because yeah. So let's click on events once more. Let's click on add notification. Let's choose all delete and all create. S3 SNS. Let's choose our notification to be an SNS topic. Let's choose this, save. So you can see over here, it's giving you permission on the destination topic, does not allow S3 to publish notification from this bucket. So let's see again, let's go to SNS topic policy and see what could be the problem. So we have created a subscription to be of type SQS, right? And on the access policy, you can see over here, we have configured. Okay, so I think there is a mistake over here, which is this extra addition of space. So let's edit this and let's click on the access policy. Let's send this back one space and click on save changes, right? So now let's go ahead and try this. So let's click on save. Okay, cool. Now it has saved. So now let's go ahead and upload a file over here and let's see if it goes through SNS to SQS. And let's also do one more thing. Why not? Let's also do one more thing. Let's go ahead and configure another subscription over here to be my email, right? To be my email address. So let's put it to my email. So I also added my email over here. So therefore it's in pending confirmation status. So let me open up my mail. So since I'm in an incognito window, I hope it opens. Let's see. Yep. So I got a mail over here. So I'm going to confirm to the subscription. And now when I go back to SNS and you go ahead and look at this subscription, now both of them are in the confirm status. Now if suppose I upload an object to S3, it should send that entire event to SNS, which means both of these subscribers to that topic, which is my email address as well as this SQSQ should receive that message. Let's see if it works out. So let's go to S3 bucket and let's add one more object over here. So let's probably add this object. It's a PDF file. Let's add it. Cool. This object is added. So now let's go to the SQSQ, refresh. Refresh. We don't have, but let's go to our mail. Yes, we do have a mail for the object that we uploaded right now, but why hasn't it come to SQS? Still hasn't come to SQS. The only reason is because under the permissions for this, the S3 bucket is given over here, but have you added a permission for SNS to send messages to this SQSQ, right? Now that's the catch, right? So I'll let you guys figure that part out as to how, if you go ahead and, so let's keep this as a homework. So how, if you go ahead and send your event from S3 all the way to SNS to a particular topic, how will it be able to send to both of these entities, right? I'll give that as an homework for you guys. So please do try it out and please let me know if it works out, right? So I think the problem would be only with the permissions over here, right? So have a nice day, guys. I hope you understood SQS in its detail, right? So you can write your own clients using any programming language in order to go ahead and consume and receive messages, and sorry, to produce and consume messages from SQS, right? And there are also other queuing systems which have much more advanced configurations and so on. So you could also take one good look at Amazon MQ, which is their, their own queuing system or messaging queuing system, which supports AMQP protocols and other protocols, or MQTT protocols and so on. You also have RabbitMQ on the other side, which is pretty old, but at the same time excellent in terms of its own different strategies like exchanges and queues and so on. So probably just take a look at both of these other queuing systems like Amazon MQ or RabbitMQ, or even just take a look at Kafka as to how Apache Kafka also works, right? So thanks a lot for attending this session, guys. Have a great day. Bye bye. See you.